Dear colleagues, Ministry of Defense spokesperson Mr. Vilyen Pidgornyy will speak on Russia's military aggression in eastern Ukraine. Mr. Pidgornyy, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me give you a weekly update on the events of the military conflict and Russian aggression against Ukraine between March 13th and 19th. The situation at the front line did not change significantly over the last week. Most active hostilities during the previous week took place at Krymske, Novoaidar district, in Avdiivka and its suburbs, and in the south of Mariupol sector. Overall, the number of ceasefire violations ranged between 50 on Sunday, March 19th, and 112 on Friday, March 17th. The share of enemy indirect fire episodes last week remained unchanged in comparison with the preceding week and amounted to 44%. In contrast, incidents of enemy sniper fire decreased in actual numbers and reached 12 compared with 22 over the foregoing week. Now to the overall situation at each of the three sectors. Luhansk. Last week, Russian-backed militants engaged Ukrainian armed forces in the sector with mortars and cannon artillery. The enemy remains consistent while choosing their target areas after week after week. Krymske, Popasna area, and Troitske regularly came under enemy fire of low and medium intensity. However, on March 16th, there was an unexpected development in Lobacheva. At 20:30, pro-Russian proxies opened fire with 82mm mortars that resulted in casualties on the part of Ukrainian defenders. That day, militants also treacherously used 122mm artillery at night time against Troitske and Novozvanivka. The same day, a teenager was wounded in the enemy fire in Valuiske village of Stanitsa Luhanska district. On March 13th, Russia-equipped militants used mortars at Krymske 3 times, having fired more than 210 mortar bombs. On March 14th, the enemy has paused mortar attacks in the daytime, just so that their sniper groups could advance to the front line and open direct fire against Novozvanivka, Novoalexandrivka, and Zhovte. On March 18th, Krymske was attacked 5 times with heavy weapons. Enemy artillery units fired more than 150 mortar bombs and rounds of different caliber during 1 artillery and 4 mortar attacks. Additionally, the enemy opened tank fire. Last week, the daily number of ceasefire violations by the enemy in the sector ranged between 12 and 25. Donetsk sector. Positions of Ukrainian armed forces in the sector were targeted with most intense enemy fire compared with other sectors. Russia-backed militants opened short but multiple mortar and artillery fire along the whole front line, being most active in Avdiivka area. The militants engaged Ukrainian positions day and night. In the evening of March 15th, the enemy artillery units opened severe artillery fire at our rear positions in Klishchiivka, south of Bakhmut, having fired nearly 80 rounds over an hour and a half. Similarly to the previous week, the enemy opened tank fire in Avdiivka and adjacent areas and used infantry fighting vehicles in Luhansk, Verkhnotoretsk, and Zaitsev. Last week, the daily fire activity of the enemy ranged between 31 and 52 ceasefire violations. As far as Mariupol sector is concerned, traditionally, the majority of ceasefire violations took place in the Pavlopil-Shirokino area of the front line. However, last week the militants used heavy weapons several times in the northern part of the sector, namely in Krasnogorivka, Marinka, Berezova, and Novotroitsky. In the morning of March 13th, the enemy sniper groups advanced to the front line. In the afternoon, the enemy artillery units opened indirect fire in Pavlopil. In the early morning of March 14th, the enemy tank engaged our positions in Marinka and fired about 20 rounds in 10 minutes. On March 16th, the enemy launched a 2-hour-long combined attack in Novotroitske, having fired a total of 50 artillery rounds and mortar bombs. March 17th was marked by the highest intensity of the enemy fire. The enemy artillery attacked Krasnogorivka, Marinka, Gnutove, Vodyane, Lebedinske, and Shirokine. On March 18th, Russia-trained militants used artillery in Vodyane, having fired nearly 50 rounds. Last week, the number of ceasefire violations by the enemy in the Mariupol sector ranged between 29 on March 18th and 46 on March 17th. Compared with the foregoing week, the intensity of UAVs used by the militants decreased from almost 3 a day to the total of 9 episodes of hostile drone flights during the whole last week. The enemy conducted aerial reconnaissance both in the tactical rear of the Ukrainian armed forces as well as at the very front line near Avdiivka, Svetlodarsk, and Krimske village. Ukraine's military intelligence continues to report about the ongoing military assistance of Moscow to its proxies in eastern Ukraine. Last week, Russia has delivered fuel to the occupied territories of Ukraine in 24 railroad tank cars. On Saturday, March 18th, 8 trucks carrying ammunition for the militants crossed the Russian-Ukrainian border near Dmitrivka village, Donetsk region. Besides, on Thursday, March 16th, the 62nd so-called humanitarian convoy from Russia delivered unidentified cargo to the militants through Izvarine and Uspianka checkpoints that are not controlled by Ukrainian government. Ukrainian military intelligence confirmed that the so-called convoy consisted of 40 trucks carrying over 500 tons of cargo. As per intelligence report, the total number of last week's casualties among the Russian proxies amounted to 11 killed and 27 wounded. Last week, 7 Ukrainian servicemen were killed in action, 40 soldiers were wounded in action, including 1 National Guard of Ukraine officer. Our hearts go out to the families and friends of the fallen Ukrainian heroes. 5 civilians were wounded during the enemy shellings in the conflict area last week. This includes 1 teenager in Voluiske, Luhansk sector, a woman in Luhansk, 2 women and a man in Avdiivka, Donetsk sector. One of the wounded women in Avdiivka was a volunteer. All wounded civilians received medical assistance in a timely manner. 29 residential buildings were damaged in the indirect fire instigated by Russian proxies in the Donetsk and Mariupol sectors. Most of them are in Avdiivka. 3 non-residential buildings were damaged by the enemy shelling in Avdiivka and Krasnogorivka. Mortar and artillery rounds directly hit a kindergarten in Avdiivka, humanitarian supplies distribution hub in Zaitsevo, power line in Gnutove, and a railway track section in the frontline areas in Donetsk sector. That'll be all for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pidgornyy. Looking forward to seeing you here next Monday.
Thank you.